We've been having a ton of fun playing a bunch of PlayStation 5 games since we got our hands on the console, so today we're gonna point out some fun details from new exclusive PlayStation games, be it graphical details or something else special. Consider this us just stopping to smell the roses, really enjoy some of the cool little things in these games. We've got a lot of fun details to dive into, so let's get started off with number 10. First, we'll talk about Demon Souls and all the new riposte and backstab animations. In the original Demon Souls, there weren't many different animations for weapons. Most of the attacks looked the same, but in the remake, most of the weapons have new animations as well as different looking ripostes and backstabs, which if you've played these games before, and if at least you're kind of competent at them, you know this makes all the difference because you are going to be pulling these off occasionally, and it's nice to see them just look cool and different. No longer are you awkwardly clubbing a guy with a pickaxe. There are so many different animations now, and it's just a simple change that gives a lot more life to the game and truly makes it feel like a remake, you know? Now next over at number 9, a fun little detail in Miles Morales is when Genki goes through all the trouble to clean a spill. This is admittedly like a really tiny one that Insomniac went absolutely crazy with. It takes place in Miles' mom's apartment. First there's a spill that happens that everyone can pretty much see, but there's a lot more to this if you follow Genki around the apartment instead of just continuing the story. Because first, he checks the internet on how to clean a spill, and then he goes to the bathroom to get cleaning supplies, then he actually goes and cleans up the spill. They didn't have to do any of this, but it's all there if you want to see it, and it's mildly entertaining. There's something about games that do little sequences like this, it almost makes them feel like interactive plays where characters go off and do different things, but then you can actually follow them and see what the hell they're doing. Sometimes it adds to the experience with funny bits or more story, and sometimes it's just a little bit of immersion, and we honestly just are appreciative that Insomniac does fun little things like this. Now over at number 8, a cool little detail is the haptic feedback effects. There's a lot of cool haptic effects in the DualSense controller in these exclusives, but some of the coolest are in Astro's Playroom and Demon Souls. Now in Astro, there's a section where it rains, and you get a little haptic feedback effect on your controller that makes it feel like just a little gentle raindrop. Then you kind of go a little bit further into the level, and then there's hail, which is clearly just demonstrating and flexing what the controller can do, but then the rain progresses and that little vibration feels a lot more stronger. Then in Demon Souls, there's feedback when you ride the elevators or things like that, but the creepiest and coolest effect is in the Tower of Latria. There's a giant heart thing that you can actually feel beating in your controller. It's really gross and creepy. A lot of this stuff is hard to explain in a video, but all of the haptic feedback stuff and the trigger stuff are just subtle and very impressive effects. If you haven't gotten your hands on a PlayStation 5 yet, you've probably heard a lot of creators and just a lot of PlayStation fans talking about this stuff, but we actually think it's pretty worth the hype. The technology is really impressive, and we're curious to see if it's a flash in the pan thing or just an actual, real, good hardware feature that developers will actually work to implement in future games. Now over at number 7, more details. There's new boss death animations in Demon Souls that are really cool. A lot of people online have pointed this out. Some of this is really hard to notice, but certain bosses, when killed, actually reveal their, and I quote, human form in the blue mist that comes off them when they die. It's very hard to see unless you pause the game and look at it in photo mode, but it's there. You can see the shape of a human, quote-unquote, soul escaping when the boss dies. It's really sweet. This only happens on certain bosses, but it's an incredible detail nonetheless, and it's even consistent with the lore, which I know a lot of From Software people really care about. So shout out to Bluepoint for doing something like that, man. Now over at number 6, when Astro looks at the camera and waves at you in Astro's Playroom, it's just a very small detail that's very charming. Obviously, it's not the first game to do something like this, but it's specifically when you position Astro so that it's in front of the camera, he'll look square at the screen and wave at you like it's almost like a fourth wall breaking thing, and it's really nice. Again, we're just pointing out little details here and having fun, and it's something you wouldn't notice, but we wanted to point it out to you guys. Now over at number 5, in case you missed this one, man, the Into the Spider-Verse costume suit in Miles Morales actually has a lower frame rate. This is freaking sweet. It essentially matches the kind of stop motion animation frame rate from the Into the Spider-Verse movie, and it just looks incredibly cool in motion. It's almost unbelievable. Does it look a little strange with a realistic New York City with a cartoon Miles flying around it? Yes, especially because his proportions are completely different to represent the character from the movie, but that frame rate really sells it because it's like a suit mod you attach to Miles' suit, and it also gives you effects when you're fighting. You get little like comic book style boom, pow, pops when you punch dudes. It's a really nice touch. It shows that Insomniac really had some extra time or money to spend, and they went the extra mile here, and we really appreciate this detail as crazy, insane Spider-Man fans. Now over at number 4, the way these tiles fall off and break when you walk on them in the Shrine of Storms and Demon Souls is very small, but impressive and just cool. In the Adjudicator boss arena, there's a series of tile floors that look like they've been destroyed, and if you walk along the ledge of these floors, the tiles hanging off of the side will break and slide off. You know, these interactions, these kinds of things in the world didn't happen in the original game. It's little things like this that make the world feel a little more real, and like I said earlier, kind of just justifies the word remake for this Demon Souls. This is a newly created version, a version that graphically fills in the blanks that the old PS3 game couldn't necessarily cover. Now down to number 3, we can talk about graphics a little bit. The reflections in Spider-Man's eye and on car mirrors in Spider-Man Remastered and Spider-Man Miles Morales. It's a very subtle effect, but if you use the camera mode and you zoom in on Spider-Man's eyes, you can see the actual reflection of the world in it, and it's actually like a real-time reflection of whatever is in front of you. It's not just like a cheap representation. It's also something you can see on certain cars' side mirrors. And fun fact, when you switch to this photo mode, even if you're playing in frame rate mode, photo mode will switch over to the fidelity mode, so you get the high resolution character models and all the advanced lighting stuff. And it's just really nice to see in motion, and even more nice to see when we pause it like we are doing in this video. It's crazy. Now over at number 2, let's talk all the tiny little details in Sackboy's Big Adventure. Not the first time we've seen a world designed to look like an arts and crafts project, you know. Yoshi's Woolly World is really similar, the original Big Planet games had that, just fuzzy, realistic looking characters, but the level of detail on display here in this game is just insanely above and beyond. First, the fuzz on the wool on Sackboy is nuts. Like I said, I think Yoshi's Woolly World really nailed this, but Sackboy stuff is like the next level here. Then there's the water in the game that's actually saran wrap and newspaper, which is just kind of like a really creative, fun art project. There's the grass that's just bits of string. Little creative things that Little Big Planet games have done before, but just here in PlayStation 5 terms, it just feels fully realized. And even stuff like the way the UI is just things hanging in front of the screen, especially just during boss fights. A lot of this stuff is very apparent and very cool details. Now down to number 1, if we're talking about little fun details, we gotta acknowledge the constant PlayStation Easter eggs in Astro's Playroom. This thing plays on your heartstrings. It definitely pulls the nostalgia card constantly. It's like half the game, but it's so worth it. It's fun to experience. Every artifact you get in the game is essentially some device from the history of the PlayStation. You're collecting all these different peripherals, even down to weird, unique stuff like the original PlayStation multi-tap, or more recent stuff like the PlayStation Move gun attachment. They have everything in this game. You'd be surprised. And pretty much every significant PlayStation game gets referenced in some way. We don't want to spoil them all, but there's Resident Evil, there's Uncharted, there's Crash Bandicoot, God of War, but it really goes on, and there's a lot of great surprises. There's some obscure stuff too. Like they got that guy from Jumping Flash, which is just insane. Or this memory card that's a reference to Ken Kutaragi, who's basically the guy who created the original PlayStation. Every level is jam-packed with so many Easter eggs that you'll probably recognize some of them, but there's a lot of really obscure ones too, and the game is worth playing through from beginning to end. It's only a handful of hours, but it's really fun to replay and collect all of these artifacts and look at them in the hub room. It's just really special, and if you're a PlayStation fan, you'll really like it. That's all we got, but we do have 2 bonus ones we really want to honor for a second. It's the memorial eggs in Miles Morales. First, 42nd Street is renamed Bozeman Way, which is in honor of Chadwick Boseman, the actor who portrayed T'Challa himself, aka Black Panther, in the MCU movies. Then there's also the Stan Lee statue. It can be found beside a place called Nick's Diner in the Upper West Side. This is where Stan Lee cameoed in the original Spider-Man game, and now he's got this really cool statue. This stuff is really nice to see for fans. But those are some cool details and references from some of the first PlayStation 5 games we wanted to highlight. We thought you guys would find these kind of interesting, just fun little details. And most importantly, if you've discovered anything yourself, we'd love to hear from you. If you want to point out any weird details, either it's an Easter egg or a graphical detail or something with the technology, let's talk. If you enjoyed this type of positive, nice video, clicking the like button really does help us out. We would really appreciate that. And if you're new, maybe consider subscribing, hitting that notification bell, because we put out a video every single day. But hey, as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.